All right, guys, this is a video of how I throw 90 miles an hour ASAP if I had to start again. When I was 16, I was throwing 78 miles an hour, and it took me like 16 months to get to 96 miles an hour. And even though you might think that's a little bit of a short time, I did make a lot of mistakes and I wasted a lot of time. And so this video, I'm gonna show you guys the step-by-step plan on exactly how I'll do that if I could start all over again with what I know right now. I wanna start with this. 90 miles an hour, you guys should probably be thinking more about how to get to 95 miles an hour. And I made a bunch of videos that you can go out and watch because, 95 is the new 90. If you throw 90 these days, even if you're in high school, it's not really that special. Throw 95 though, people are gonna really notice. But the first step is to get to 90 because, 90 is still a special number, right? We still wanna get there. The first thing I wanna say is that 90 miles an hour is something that me and the team at the Pitcher Lab 100% agree that everyone can throw 90 miles an hour. Okay, now you might be thinking, how is that possible? You need to be talented. You might need some advantage genetically, all of this stuff, right? But I'm gonna tell you exactly what you should be doing to get to 90 miles an hour, even if you're like super unathletic, right? If you have no talent, you have no genetic advantages, right? And I consider myself one of those guys who, I was throwing 78 as a 16-year-old. If I was genetically gifted, I'd probably be throwing, at least 85, 88 as a 16-year-old. Right? You see all these kids these days throwing 90 plus as a 16-year-old. And that's sometimes what's required to go to these big time SEC schools or become, a big time first round pick, something like that. Right? And so I put myself in that category of I wasn't genetically talented. Okay, now you might look at me and my playing career, I played 7 years, I played professional baseball, signed a big contract, all of that, and be like, oh, he must have been really, really talented and maybe genetically gifted. But again, guys, I was 16 throwing 78 miles an hour. There's nothing special about that. I was behind everyone else. But I was able to train myself intentionally to get to, 90 miles an hour and beyond. And so that is what I'm gonna teach you in this video today. Now, getting to 90 miles an hour is very simple, okay? And I know there's a bunch of stuff on the internet, online, that makes it a lot more complicated, right? There's a bunch of information that you're overloaded with. There's contradicting information everywhere, and you don't really know what is good information to use and what's information that you shouldn't use, right? Every single pitching coach has their own philosophy of this is what you need to do to gain pitching velocity. This is what you need to do. Right? I've been to all of the big programs, right? One might be weighted balls is the best thing. The other one might be no, weighted balls suck. Do medicine ball drills only. Another place might be just rip a bunch of pull downs and you'll be good. And the other place will be oh no, just do drill work, mechanical patterning, and you're good to go. Everyone has this one thing that they believe in that's the thing that's going to get you to increase pitching velocity. And so for you, someone who's watching this, it might get confusing of which one should I do? There are so many that I can choose from. Which one should I be choosing, right? And so this video is going to be kind of more about the underlying principles, right? Of what will actually get you to throw harder. Because it's not going to be one training method. It's not going to be one mechanical fix, not one lifting method, right? There are underlying things that you have to do to the human body, right, to be able to produce enough force to throw 90 miles an hour. And so I'm going to give you that and more in this video. And so I want to tell you a story about one of our athletes that we worked with who came to us throwing 82 and now he's throwing 90 miles an hour and beyond. Okay, and so the step-by-step process that he followed was, firstly, build a frame that's able to produce enough force into the ball to throw 90 miles an hour, right? And what does this mean? It's everything with the body. So it might be, strength. It might be power. It might be you don't have enough impulse, right? It might be that you're so skinny that you're not putting enough force behind the ball. It might be that you're so tight that you can't get into deep ranges of motion, right? And so everything that's to do with the body to be able to produce force. It's like the engine pretty much. And so for this guy that came to us throwing 82, this guy was a big, strong kid, right? He didn't need to really develop that much more on the strength side. His body composition was pretty good. We did do a lot of work on power development and impulse training with him, But the biggest thing for him, which is step number 2, is to be able to transfer that energy up the chain really efficiently. Okay? And so this is where mechanics come in. Like even if your body is able to produce enough force, right, it has the potential to throw at a high velocity. Well, if you're not, then there's something happening in the mechanics that's not allowing that force and energy to transfer up the body, right? And so that's step number 2. And for this guy, he had a messed up arm action. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it, right? His arm action was terrible. You know, his arm would just get into weird positions when he was here. It like, you know, spiked right up, and then there was just no energy transferring into the ball, right? And so what we kind of found was, okay, he has the frame, right? But now it's all about transferring it. And the biggest low-hanging fruit for him was the arm action, right? And how we like to approach it is one at a time. We're not going to give you a bunch of things. Like this kid was prone to overthinking, right? He would go to a bunch of different coaches and they'll give him 10 different things at once. Hey, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what we're doing wrong. Back leg, front leg, all of this stuff, right? And he will try to fix it all at once and he just couldn't, okay? And so how we like to approach it is to do it one by one. What is the biggest thing we need to work on for you? Okay, it's the arm action. Now let's clean that up. And now let's see how hard you throw. And he trained with us for 3 months. And the majority of that time was dedicated and cleaning up his arm action. That's pretty much all we worked on. But what happened? He gained 8 miles an hour in 3 months. And he hit 90 miles an hour. Okay? He went from 82 to 90 in 3 months just by working on his arm action. Okay? Because that was the biggest thing that he needed to work on. That was the bottleneck for him to increase pitching velocity, right? And so, again, the formula is very simple. Have a frame that's able to produce enough force, right? And then next, be able to transfer it smoothly up the arm so that you can throw hard. I'm going to give you another example. There was another guy who came to us. He was throwing 82, 83, 84 in the low 80s, right? He had just gone through surgery, all right? And so when he came to us, step 1 was, okay, let's see if he has the frame available to produce the force, right? Does he have the potential to actually throw hard? What we kind of found was that, you know, he had gone through a bunch of injuries. He did a couple surgeries. And so his body was pretty slow because it was guarding, right? When you're injured, you don't feel too great. The brain is going to guard the body to where it's like, you know, we don't want to do anything dangerous because we don't want to re-injure ourselves, right? And so it's going to get stiff, it's going to get slow, and that's kind of what we found was, yeah, he has the strength, right? He has the strength. That's not the issue. But his body just doesn't want to move quickly and with intent. And so the biggest thing for him was, okay, let's increase power production, doing a lot of power stuff, impulse stuff, rate of force development type training to speed up his body, right? And start to tell his brain, hey, it's okay to move quick with intent, right? And so that was like building his frame part. This was something that we were just absolutely hammering, okay? And this athlete actually trained with us for 6 months. And so we had a little bit more time with him. And so that was our main focus from the build the frame. And, you know, his mobility was off the charts. He was a very mobile athlete. And so the biggest thing for him was the power, rate of force development, impulse. And as we're working on that, the other thing that we were working on with him was mechanics. And so again, he was guarding, right? He had a lot of elbow and shoulder issues. And so it was putting him into weird positions because his brain didn't allow him to get into, you know, deep ranges of motion that is needed to throw gas. What we did was program a bunch of exercises, okay, that force him to get into different types of movements and positions, right? To kind of tell the brain again, hey, it's okay to be in these positions, okay? And to move with intent, all right? And so, you know, this is called constraint-based throwing, is basically, without you even thinking about it, you're getting into the correct positions because of the drills, right? And the intent that you're moving at, okay? And I'm gonna attach a lot of example videos here of him doing that. And so after those 6 months, and he's still training with us, by the way, he's up to 92, 93 miles an hour. Okay, just by the simple 2-step process. And this isn't just what works for, you know, lower velocity, lower level athletes, by the way. You know, I've talked about 2 guys who have been in the low 80s. But this also works with someone who is a little bit higher level, right? We had a guy who was up to 93, right? And within 2 to 3 months of working with us, he's up to 96 now. So what did we actually do with him? Firstly, this guy was a beast, okay? He is a 100-mile-an-hour candidate. We think he's going to throw 100 miles an hour pretty soon. And what we found was that his mobility was good. He had really good strength. He was a beast in the weight room. There was a lot of work to do in terms of the power rate of force development side of things and impulse side of things. But for the most part, his frame was pretty good, right? There wasn't glaring bottlenecks that we had to attack for him to increase pitching velocity, okay? And so the big issue, though, and what we saw with him was his mechanics, and specifically his lower body mechanics, right? And so what we saw was that his lower body was very dumpy, right? There was no tension that he created in his back leg. He would pretty much just fall down the mount. There was no energy in his back leg going toward the target. And so what we did with him is to teach him, hold that tension in the back leg and actually transfer that energy that you're creating, right, in the back leg up the chain into the arm, right? And just by honing in on that, right, that's what made the significant increase of 93 to 96 miles an hour. And you might be thinking, oh, that's only 3 miles an hour. But, I mean, when you're throwing in the mid-90s and beyond, every single mile an hour is equivalent to like 5 miles an hour when you're throwing in the 80s, right? It's a significant jump. Every single mile an hour is huge. Okay, imagine a guy who's throwing 99 getting to 100. Like, that is a crazy, crazy jump, right? And so as you start to throw harder, it becomes harder to increase pitching velocity. And so a 3 mile an hour increase going from 93 to 96 within such a short period of time, 2 to 3 months, I mean, that's pretty good, okay? And it's not just him. There's another guy who came to us, right? I tell you all of these stories because a lot of people overcomplicate velocity development, right? But it doesn't have to be. It can be very simple, okay? And so if you're a guy who's wanting to increase pitching velocity, then you can follow these steps. Step 1, do I have the frame needed to produce force? No? Okay, well, that's what I need to focus on. Step 2 is, okay, well, if I do have the force, right, then am I able to transfer it nicely? If it's not coming out the way you want it, then there's a bunch of mechanical inefficiencies that you need to work on, okay? And so that's kind of like the formula. It's very simple. Number 1, force production, or build the frame able to produce enough force to throw hard. And then the second one is transfer all of that energy that you're creating, all that force that you're creating up the chain into the arm, okay? And so, this is the exact 2-step process that I followed as well when I went from 78 to 96 miles an hour. And it wasn't as smooth of a process because I didn't really know what I was doing. But, in hindsight, this was pretty much what I did. When I was 16, I was super skinny, weak. And so I had to build a lot of strength and muscle, right? And so that's what I did to get to like the upper 80s. It's pretty much just strength work, body composition work, really gaining weight, muscle. And on the throwing side, I was working on my mechanics through a bunch of constraint-based drills, right? That were molding my mechanics into high velocity mechanics. Okay, and so that's pretty much what I did to get up to, the upper 80s, even touch 90. And then for me to get to the next step of getting to the mid 90s and beyond, my training kind of changed in the force production side to more rate of force development. How quickly can I move? Not just how strong can I be? And on the mechanical side, right, it became a lot more detail oriented. It wasn't just, just do a bunch of these drills and that's cool. It's more like, okay, I worked with a coach one-on-one. He was seeing my bottlenecks of where the energy was stopping, right, where it wasn't efficient, and we would work on that one piece by one piece. And I still remember it, like, I never really consciously thought about my mechanics, but when I was trying to get to the upper levels, right, I had to really work on, for example, upper body mechanics. I was spinning off like this, and I was very rotational, and so I had to make sure that I was directing a lot of my energy through the target, right? And that's something that was a bottleneck for me because I was losing a lot of energy just by doing this, flying open, right? We all know we need to stay close and create separation. And so we did a lot of work on that through drills, cues, and working with a coach who actually knows what they were talking about. Okay, and so going back to the ocean of info that you have at your fingertips right now with social media and all of these coaches claiming to, this is the velocity hack. Well, a lot of it just comes down to this, right? Like, I've done all of the programs out there, okay? And so everything that you do should really come back to this if you're thinking about, velocity development. And so, there's this program that I'm not going to name, but they hate weighted balls, but all they do is medicine balls, right? And so what is that pretty much doing? Like what is medicine ball stuff doing? Well, it's building the frame to be able to produce force, right, with a medicine ball, with a weighted ball. And it's also working on transfer of energy because, you need to have pretty good mechanics to be able to throw the medicine ball hard, right? And what is that pretty much doing? Well, it's developing force production, right? Training the body and the central nervous system to be able to produce enough force to throw at a high intent, right? A lot of this high CNS throwing stuff is teaching the body to actually turn on really quickly, right? To be able to throw hard. If you want to throw hard, as cliche as it is, you need to throw hard to actually train the body, central nervous system, and the brain to be able to throw, right? And it also works on this because, with the weighted balls, you might be doing a bunch of drills that are forcing you into different positions, right? That's actually going to really help you with the transfer of energy up the arm. And again, like with the pull down, it might be like, oh, we're working on the lead leg block because, if you're creating so much linear momentum and you're turning and throwing, well, you need a pretty good lead leg block to block all of that, right? And send all the energy up the chain. And so a lot of it just comes down to this. It's either you're building the frame to produce more force and building that engine, or you're working on the transfer of energy with the mechanics, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Just think about it in two camps, okay? Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be like, oh, this is just oversimplified. Like, I don't think this will work for me. And my answer to that is why? And a lot of the questions that I face is like, oh, well, I think I'm just not talented enough. I just don't think I'm genetically gifted enough. And to that I say, I give myself as an example, right? I was a 16-year-old throwing 78 miles an hour. But if that's not enough, the two guys that I explained today, the top two guys who came to us, who's throwing in the low 80s and now throws 90 plus, were JUCO guys. They were 18, 19 years old. And so these guys, you can't call them genetically gifted because if they were genetically gifted, they'd be throwing, mid-90s as an 18, 19-year-old. But they were throwing in the low 80s. Talent and being genetically gifted, it's just an excuse. It's not something that you can control. And so you just need to take ownership of like, okay, this is who I am. This is how hard I throw. How good can I become? And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be surprised at how good you can actually become if you put in the right work. And it can really just be this simple, right? The two-step process. And I want to leave you guys with this story. And I thought it was extremely inspiring. It might light a fire underneath yours. If you're watching this and you're like, you know what? This is something that I really want to do. I want to get to 90 plus miles an hour, but I don't know if I can get there. I was talking to a guy, right? And he was in the mid 80s right now and is on his journey to throw 90 miles an hour and is doing all this training. And I found his story extremely inspiring. Why? Well, this guy was far from talented, right? He wasn't talented at all. In fact, he didn't have one of his legs, okay? And so he has a prosthetic leg and is throwing in the mid 80s right now. Okay, how crazy is that? And his journey to get to 90, that's something that he completely believes in. It's something that has already started working with, and that's something that I want to help him with as well. Okay, and so if he can believe that he can get to 90, right, and he's already in the mid 80s, then, so can you. Getting to 90 plus, you're obviously watching this video, and so you know how important it is to get to 90 plus. But getting to 90 plus and 95 plus, it just opens up so many doors, right? Velocity is a prerequisite in today's game. But the bright side is, if you do throw hard, then, I mean, all the opportunities are going to open up. You're going to get Division One offers, right? You're going to get professional contract offers. You're going to be on all the top prospect lists, everything like that. And that's kind of what happened to me when I had no offers, right? When I was throwing 78, even when I was throwing 88, I had no offers, no interest. As soon as I started throwing 96, I got a full scholarship to my dream Division One school, which was Stanford at the time, right? And I was offered a professional contract that I took from the Philadelphia Phillies, okay? And, during this time, I did everything that I could have. I learned from all the best minds. I went to Driveline, Tread, Top Velocity, the ranches, all of these big places, and I learned from some of the best. And this is why I can say with confidence that it boils down to a two-step process. And so this is what I help guys with right now. I played 7 years of professional baseball. I'm still trying to throw 100 miles an hour, and I'm implementing this two-step process on myself, right? Because I want to go out and I still have aspirations to play at a high level. But one thing that I do is help guys who need to gain that velocity to continue playing, who want to really take their game to the next level, have all these accolades of college, scholarships, professional baseball, all of this stuff. That's the guys who I help, right? And implement the two-step process. And obviously we go into way more detail than this. We're going to teach you how to actually do the thing specific for you. And I told you a bunch of examples in the stories beforehand about the details and the specific examples of how we would have to implement this into yourself, right? And so, what people and players kind of do when they want my help is, they'll watch a YouTube video like this. They feel like there's someone who wants to invest in their career. And so, there's a link, top link in the description that they just click on and they can book a call with me. And so, on that call, I'll be able to give you advice, give you some direction, and see if it's, something that you want to do is to work together. And even if not, you got a coaching call right there. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And if I inspired any of you today and broke some type of limiting belief for you to really, go out and get to 90 plus and try to get to the Division One professional levels, then that's what I wanted to do today. And again, it can be very, very simple as a two-step process. And I've seen hundreds of guys implement it and gain a lot of velo, right? I've worked with hundreds of guys who have actually done this, right? And so again, if this is something that you feel like you need help with, top link in the description. You can go to our website, book a call with our team. It might be me or my partner, right? And again, we'll just give you guidance, advice, and see if it would be the right fit for you to work with us, right? And even if not, again, we're going to give you as much value as we can on the call. And so, there's no harm in booking a call and seeing where it goes. But that's it for today. I'll see you next time.